Hi everybody, in this routine we are tackling the hands and wrists menu from the Pain-Free book. This routine is very shoulder function driven and very hip flexor function driven. The reason being, if your hands and your wrists hurt, they are overworking, overloading, because your shoulders are not pulling their weight and your hips are not pulling their weight. So we're actually not doing any like wrist stretches or wrist loading or anything like that, because that would be symptom chasing. What we are tackling instead is almost everything except for your hands and wrists. So if you have symptoms and pain there, then this menu should be absolutely fine for you. But what I will say, as ever, you've got to use your discernment. You've got to be the boss of your own body. Be responsible for yourself. If anything aggravates a normal symptom of pain for you, it's not the exercise for you. You have to drop it. The sooner that you learn that lesson, the sooner that you will be on your way to becoming pain-free. In terms of equipment today, you're going to need a fairly wide stretch of wall, like so. So we're going to be standing up for every single exercise, but we're going to do wall clock, which means that we're going to take our arms wide. My arms are not going to quite fit, but I'm going to do the best I can with the space that I have. But you are going to need a wide stretch of wall. You're going to need a yoga block or potentially like a cushion folded in half. And then I've also got my chair here. I'm going to use it for standing quad stretch. So I'll just quickly show you what it is that we're going to be doing, and then you can maybe find something similar. So we put our foot on a surface like this. And you want the surface to be fairly firm, otherwise you're going to be wobbling around all over the place. Okay, so let's begin. We are going to start with our body back against the wall. We've got toes, ankles, knees and hips in alignment and parallel. So make sure that your feet are not wider than hip width apart, which is a mistake that most people make. And make sure that your toes are not wider than your ankles. So what you're imagining is two train tracks running through the center of your feet, with the second and the third toe joints in alignment with the center of the foot and in alignment with the back of the ankles. If in doubt, go a little bit more pigeon-toed than you are inclined to be. Our toes spread wide apart from each other. We pin down into our big toe joints. We don't lock our knees backwards into the wall. We keep the calves, the bottom, the Achilles heels back against the wall. And what we're going to do to start with is 3 minutes of shoulder shrugs. So this is a moving up and down of the shoulder blade into elevation and depression. So it's going to require us to pull our shoulder blades back behind us. So we're using those kind of mid-back muscles to pull the shoulder blades backwards. As we do that, just make sure that you're not lifting your rib cage upwards or poking your head forwards. So you might notice that your rib cage or your neck want to compensate if those shoulders are a bit dysfunctional, which they might be if you've got hand and wrist pain. So the rib cage doesn't lift, the head doesn't move forwards. We pull the shoulder blades behind us. We're keeping them there. And what we're going to do is really slowly and with control, we're going to shrug our shoulders up towards our ears without our head poking forwards. And then very slowly and with control, we're going to draw our shoulder blades as far down into our mid-back as possible. So I'll set my timer here. Off we go, 3 minutes. What you are not doing is lifting your shoulders up, but then just dropping them down. We're making sure that we are active on the movement up and the movement down. You're really trying to take those shoulder blades down into the middle of your back so that you feel muscles in your kind of side torso, middle back working hard. And this is going to help really reposition our shoulders. So often when we've got like a rounded shoulders position, it's because we are very weak in our mid back. And this range of movement, scapular depression, can be one of the ranges of movement that we're very, very weak in if we spend lots of time like hunched over a desk or a computer, that type of thing. So we're not just practicing going upwards, we're really making sure that we're imagining those fish hooks in the bottom of our shoulder blades, really pulling down nice and far to draw the shoulders away from the ears, lengthen the side of the neck, all whilst the shoulder blades stay behind us. I'm using my hands, are quite active, and that just helps me to kind of connect into my arms and shoulders so I do this better. My belly stays relaxed. My breathing is in and out of my nose and into my lower rib cage. My face stays relaxed. I'm making sure I'm not locking out my knees. Keeping the weight even through both of my feet. And just trying to eke out a little bit more movement every time. Making sure the rib cage is not lifting up and down, nor is the neck poking forwards and backwards. We want the shoulder blades behind you, and we want the shoulder blades moving up and down. The arms and hands are going along for the ride, but no other part of your body is moving. Nice and slowly, trying to get as much range of movement in each direction as possible, especially on that way down, because that way down is one that we definitely tend to neglect in our everyday lives. And actually most people have shoulders that are kind of stuck up around their ears. And for that reason, if you're already kind of locked in that range of movement, you might find going up higher more problematic because you're already stuck there and your body doesn't want more elevation. So if that's the case, focus on the depression and staying lower in the range of movement rather than focusing too much on getting your shoulders up around your ears. Got 15 seconds left here. We're just improving the upper body position, reducing any rotation in the rib cage, stretching out the hips and grounding ourselves into our feet here. 3, 2, and 1. Okay, very kind of similar type of exercise. The lower body is staying exactly the same. And what we're going to do is 1.5 minutes of shoulder rolls forwards. So it's like this. So I'm squeezing my shoulder blades together behind me. I'm lifting them up around my ears, moving them forwards, and then pulling them down, not just flopping them down. So I would say kind of almost think about it as being a bit of a square motion rather than a circle. And that's going to help you get a little bit more movement. Once again, as you do this, your head is not pecking and your rib cage is not lifting. We want the shoulders driving the movement whilst the rest of the body grounds. We're going to do 1.5 minutes forwards, off we go. So really making sure that we're not going too fast here, that we're maintaining that nasal breathing in and out of our nose and into our lower rib cage, that the head isn't pecking forwards and backwards, that the rib cage is not lifting up and down, that your weight stays even in both of your feet, the belly stays relaxed, and that you're really trying to use muscular control here. We're not flapping the hands and the elbows around to drive the movement. We want the shoulders to drive the movement, and we're really trying to get as many muscles working as possible. We're not lifting and then just dropping or moving so quickly where it's very easy to use momentum to drive the movement. We want muscles, not momentum. And then once we've hit 1.5 minutes, in a second, we are going to do the same thing, but backwards. 20 seconds left. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exactly the same thing, but this time we're going backwards. The shoulders are moving, the arms and the hands are following, the spine is not moving, and by that I mean that the rib cage isn't lifting up and down, nor is the head poking forwards and backwards. Because those are both signs that your spine is compensating for a lack of shoulder function. And so we want your shoulders to switch on and learn what they need to do, rather than your spine just compensating more and more. Breathing in and out of the nose, into the lower belly, relaxing the face, relaxing the belly. Nice and slowly, trying to get as much movement here as slowly as possible to really make sure that we're working into the nooks and crannies of that shoulder joints, which really comprises quite a lot of your kind of upper back and mid back as well. 15 seconds left here. The head's not moving forwards and backwards. The rib cage is not lifting up and down. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So we're going to stay exactly where we are, but this time we're going to put our yoga block or our cushion folded in half in between our thighs like this. So it depends on the size of the yoga block that you have, but you want the block to hold your legs in this alignment. So I wouldn't want the block to be that way because that's too wide. I certainly wouldn't want it to be that way. So for this type of block, this way around's perfect. My hips, my knees, my ankles, and the middle of my second and my third toes are in alignment. Once again, making sure that those toes are not off out to the side. I'm going to set my timer here. And this time we are just doing standing at the wall with a block. So the alignment of everything is exactly the same as it just was in those previous 2 exercises. It's just this time we're not moving our shoulders. So we've done a little bit of shoulder function to improve the upper body position. And now what we're going to do is stand still in this like alignment so that things start clicking into place. Our feet are going to wake up. Our legs are going to start aligning themselves. Our hips are going to start stretching. Our pelvis is going to start balancing. Our lower back is going to start lengthening. And all of these things downstream change how the upper body is sitting. So we're creating upper body change indirectly by improving our lower body position. So just to run you through everything here, but the timer for our 8 minutes here has begun. So we've got the toes, the ankles, the knees, and the hips in alignment. Once again, making sure that those toes are probably a little bit more pigeon-toed than your brain thinks that they should be. We're spreading the toes wide apart from each other, and we're really pinning down into our big toe joints and the balls of our feet. So we don't want the balls of our feet lifting here. We're going to keep our ankles, our calves, and our bottom at the wall. We're not locking backwards so that the backs of our knees touch the wall. So if you're prone to hyperextension, know that A, you can change that if you rewire your movement patterns, but B, it's a problem with foot dysfunction and hip dysfunction. So we want to keep a little bit of a softness at the knee, still keeping the calves at the wall, but hopefully the more that your feet start waking up, shins, calves, and hips, you're going to notice that you are less prone to locking those knees backwards. You're making sure that you're not thrusting that rib cage up. So the principle is the same as those last exercises. Your brain is going to want you to pull your shoulders and your head back. I want you to focus on the lower portion of your rib cage being what is back against the wall. It's going to make you feel way more hunched forward in your upper body, and if that's the case, you are doing it correctly. What this change in rib cage position enables is for your hips to actually extend. So if we lift the rib cage to pull our shoulders back, what we're doing is putting hyperextension in our lower back. The hips are not extending. Bring the rib cage down, the lower rib cage touches the back, and what you will notice is you're going to get more stretching, more things happen around your hips and pelvis, and as if by magic, your shoulders and your arms are going to start just pulling backwards. The belly stays relaxed. We're squeezing the block with our knees, so we're engaging what we call our adductors, our inner thigh muscles, by squeezing the block, and we're going to use that squeeze on the block to gently pull our pelvis underneath us, so into a slight posterior tilt. I'm not squeezing my glutes to bring my pelvis under. I'm squeezing the block in adduction, and I'm using that connection through the inner thighs to draw the pelvis slightly underneath, okay? So the glutes are not the only muscles involved in tucking that pelvis under. Your adductors are really important as well, and it really helps to connect a kind of chain of muscles called your deep front line when you get these guys waking up and changing your pelvic position. So as I do that, and as I squeeze my block and tuck slightly under, I'm getting a little bit more of a stretch here through my right hand side hip, which is nice because this right hip being bunged up kind of keeps the rest of my right hand side bunged up, and you can hopefully see in the video that my right arm is kind of in front of me. Exercises like this, where I'm kind of clearing this channel through that right hand side, are really useful to just naturally bring that right arm back and down behind me. We're making sure that we've got an even amount of weight through both of our feet. We're keeping the face relaxed. We're breathing in and out of our nose. Really breathing into the bottom of the rib cage to help loosen up the kind of top attachment point of the hip flexors. We're not shoving our head backwards, our shoulders backwards, our arms or our hands backwards. If you're like this, you're not doing it properly, you're compensating. Arms, hands, shoulders, head relaxed. What we want is this like bottom up approach here. So we want the feet to start like burning and changing. We want the calves and the shins to maybe be doing stuff. We want you to feel stuff around your quads and your glutes and your adductors. We want the fronts of your hips to be stretching. And as all of this starts clicking into place, your upper body is going to start feeling quite different. Nearly at 5 minutes here. The thing that I just, for whatever reason, probably because I'm dysfunctional in it, I just always forget about squeezing the blocks. I'm really trying to remind myself, I'm drawing my upper thighs inwards into the block, waking up that medial chain, the adductors, and then slightly using that connection to tuck the pelvis under. And as I do that, I'm definitely getting a little bit more wobbly in my right leg, but I can feel how much my right calf is stretching, which is a really nice sign. So as I start to like ground down into that right leg more through that calf stretch, it's going to help to pull my right pelvis down, which is a little bit elevated. The hip's going to stretch, and then this is going to really help to free the rest of the right side of my body. But we've got more hip extension exercises coming up, so there's more opportunity for that change to happen. Breathing and relaxing. Just making sure that you're not buckling backwards through the knees. A little bit of a softness at the knees if you're prone to doing that. We want the muscles of your legs, your lower legs, your feet working. We don't want the joints compensating, which is what the hyperextension is. Keep breathing. I love this exercise. This is definitely one where you can just like do it when you're watching TV and stuff like that. You can kind of give yourself a competition as to how long you hold it for. I think probably my favorite exercises for most bodies and overall in the body are these types of standing ones, because all of your joints are involved, so they have an impact on all of you. And it really helps to just align people from top to toe. The wall is great for reducing rotation, but the wall is also great for teaching people where their joints should be over their ankles. But we don't want to be lifting the rib cage up. We want that rib cage kind of untucked so that the hips can release, and then that's where we're going to get more changes happen in our shoulder position and upper body. We've got less than a minute left now. And then the next one that we're moving on to is our standing quad stretch. So this is where we'll need our chair or something similar. Breathing into the back of the ribs. Oh, I'm getting a really big burn in my right calf, which is good. And getting a good like wobble. I wish I could stay in this a bit longer, but I don't want the videos to be too long. So maybe I'll have to do this later on myself. Five, 4, 3, 2, and 1. That was standing at the wall with a block. So I'm putting my block down now. And I like doing this exercise facing something, but you actually don't have to. So I've got my chair, something similar, fairly firm so you're not wobbling around. You're going to just gently rest your hands on the wall, and you're going to think about that alignment that we've just been doing. So toes, ankles, knees and hips on our train tracks without the toes pointing outwards and without the knee locking backwards. I'm going to lift up my left leg without shifting my right leg at all. So my right foot hasn't moved. And then I'm setting myself up where when I look down, both of my knees are in alignment with one another. So I'm just going to move my chair backwards slightly to facilitate that. I'm really keeping my weight evenly through both of my feet here. So even though my left one is tucked under, I'm not like just going off over to the right hand side. So I'm really grounded through my right foot, but I'm really pushing into my left foot so that that left leg's working. When I look behind, I'm trying the best I can to keep my toes, my ankles, my knees and my hips in alignment again. So you might notice that you're like sickling and bending your foot, so try not to do that. And what we're doing is we're using the connection through the top of our left foot to push down, and it's going to help us wake up the back of our left leg, and we're going to tuck our left pelvis slightly under until we feel a stretch through the front of the left hip. And then we're just going to make sure that the kneecaps are level with each other, the hips are level with each other, and we have an even amount of weight through both of our legs. Off we go. So the face is relaxing. We're breathing in and out of our nose, moving the lower rib cage. Just making sure we're not buckling backwards through our right knee. Grounding through that right foot, pushing down into the left foot, tucking under with the left pelvis so that we feel a bit more of a stretch here through the front of the left hip. You don't want it to be that you're in your like lower back, so there should be no rib cage flare going on. This is about trying to find sensation, stretching through the front of the left hip and the left quad, but it's also about finding work and action and activity through the back of your left leg. So we want that left arch of your foot cramping because you're pointing the toe hard, pushing the top of the foot down. And then that's activating the calf, the hamstring and the glute on that left-hand side. So that's waking up your hip extensors to open up the front of a tense hip joint. You're trying to keep your kneecaps in alignment with one another as you look down. And you're also trying to keep your hip joints in alignment with each other as you look down, making sure that you don't have one hip that's also higher than the other. Getting a good old wobble in my left calf here. Breathing nice and deeply. Got 10 seconds left. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good job. Shake it off. We're going to do exactly the same thing on the other side, but let's just make sure we've got our alignment right. Toes, ankles, knees, and hips. Left foot doesn't adjust itself as we take that right leg up. Toe, ankle, knee, and hip on that right leg in alignment. Adjusting our position so that the kneecaps are level with one another, and off we go. So I'm pointing my right foot, pushing down into the chair with my top of my right foot. I'm using that to help kind of tuck my right pelvis under, activate the back of my right leg, so the calves, the arches of the feet, the hamstrings, the glutes, and the quad and the front of the hip are stretching. Keeping that weight in my left foot, but I'm not dominating with my left foot. So on both sides, my toes, my ankles, my knees, and my hips are in alignment with one another. It's just that one leg is doing something different to the other. Making sure that that foot isn't banana-ing too much. But the most important thing here is, you can think about all of the cues and stuff, and that's great. But as long as you're feeling something stretching at the front of your hip that you are stretching, then you're fine. So as long as you feel your quad stretching and the front of the hip, you're doing this well enough. 30 seconds left. Really trying to fire up the back of that right leg, using the foot position and the foot pointing down. Tucking the glute under. I'm getting a nice shake on my calf on this right hand side as well. Slightly opening up the side of my right waist here. I have to kind of actively peel apart my side body because I have a tendency to hike that right hip to get more of a stretch. 3, 2, and 1. Okay. So the chair's going to one side and we're going to do hanging. So hanging is just a forward fold, and you're going to get sick of me saying it, but we have to think about our toes, our ankles, and our knees and our hips again. So we don't want the toes pointing out to the side because that puts the hips in external rotation, and that's going to prevent your pelvis from being able to move forwards properly. So like this, we're going to fold our arms. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring ourselves forward. And if you're very limited in this range of movements, you can actually grab your chair again, and you can just have your chair in front of you and get used to it, and the backs of your legs will probably be stretching if you're really tight with the chair. But what we're trying not to do here is, as we bend forwards, we're not shoving our pelvis backwards. So we don't want the pelvis to be behind the ankles. What we're going to try and do is, it doesn't matter if you get yourself down that way, but I want you to shift gently your weight forwards so that the pelvis is above the ankles and you can feel weight in the fronts of your feet, the big toe joints, and you'll suddenly feel like it feels a lot more difficult. It feels a lot more of a balancing exercise. So this is just very passive, and it's very kind of like you're just hanging out in your joints, no muscles are working. But as the weight shifts forwards, it really forces things to wake up. We're going to bend into our knees, keeping that weight forwards. We're going to squeeze our quads, our front thigh muscles. We're going to straighten our legs, but without the pelvis moving backwards. And then we're going to just twist our knees inwards slightly so that we're really slightly internally rotating our knees, and this is going to make us feel more in our hips. 1.5 minutes here, off we go. So the head is completely relaxed, the neck is completely relaxed, the arms, the hands, the shoulders, and what we're looking for is as much work as we can tolerate through our legs, basically. So you might feel your calves stretching, you might feel your hamstrings stretching. I'm a bit wobbly. You might feel the fronts of your hips working. You want to squeeze your quads on. And the whole while, it doesn't matter if you're not perfect, but the whole while you're trying to just keep creeping your weight forwards, because that's just going to ask you for more and more hip flexion, which is what we're going after here. Definitely getting like a release through my right leg, which struggles to fully straighten in this exercise. I like to kind of rebend my knees every now and then just to make sure that I'm focusing on my quads and the weight coming forwards, and that I can feel that wobbling and that work. My head relaxes. Breathing into the back of the ribs still here. Making sure that you're not dominating with one leg over the other, pinning into the big toe joints. Oh, I just had a release there and suddenly it just fired up my hamstrings. Woo! 3, 2, 1. Oh, I always hate doing that one first thing in the morning because I'm very stiff in that one first thing in the morning. Okay, so next up, we're going to move on to standing wall clock. And this is the one where my ceiling is just not quite high enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate this to you in a kneeling position, but I will do the exercise in a standing position. So you're going to do your golfer's grip. If you don't know what golfer's grip is, please do have a look at the videos in the software. You're going to stand facing the wall like this. In fact, you know what? I'm going to demonstrate this facing the wall, sorry, and I'm going to go down in kneeling when actually we do it. I've got my pigeon-toed feet. So my big toe joints are touching, my ankles are slightly wider. I'm keeping my hips at the wall. My arms are in golfer's grip, and this is where I have a problem with the ceiling. No, tell you what, I am going to do it like this, sorry. So imagine that I'm standing. We're going to drive the hands up towards the ceiling. The forehead rests on the wall, and we're going to pull the shoulder blades back and down into the middle of the back. If you've got that position and you can focus on driving the hands up and the shoulder blades down, at that point you can try and externally rotate the upper arm. So we're not just twisting our hand and our wrist here, the movement comes from that upper arm. We're going to stand like this for a minute. Then we're going to stand like this for a minute, and then we're going to stand like this for a minute, okay? So I'm going to replicate this standing, but I'm going to have to cock my hands to the side slightly. Off we go. 1 minute here. So the hands drive away, the shoulders pull down. Twisting the upper arms in the shoulder sockets to try and get external rotation through the upper arms. We relax our belly, we relax our face, we breathe in and out of the nose, driving the hands up, pulling the shoulders down, rotating the upper arms, relaxing the neck. So if your shoulders don't work very well, you might really try and poke your head forwards here like a tortoise. making sure that your wrists are not bending. Mine are because of the wall, the ceiling. Make sure your wrists are not bending. Make sure your fingers are super active and engaged. Make sure your thumbs are pulling backwards. 3, 2, 1. So that's position number 1. And we're going to do exactly the same thing, which I can now do properly because I have got the space. So we're just doing it at like 10 and 2 on a clock. Off we go here. Same rules apply. So my shoulders pull down into the middle of my back. My arms from the top, not from the wrists, twist backwards to really open up the front of the chest. I'm not bending my wrists. The wrists stay straight. I pull the thumbs back towards me to stretch off that space between the thumb and the first finger. The fingers are tucked in the golfer's grip position. My belly is relaxed. My breathing is calm. My face is not contorting. I'm trying to just wake up my mid-back, the backs of my arms through the rotation, and my hands. Just over 10 seconds left here. And that's time. Okay, exactly the same rules apply, but we're going to do 9 and 3 on a clock. So really trying to pull those shoulder blades into the middle of the back, drive the hands away, get that rotation from the upper arm, keep breathing, relaxing the rest of you, off we go. So I'm really pulling my shoulder blades back and down here. And actually there's a lot more movement there than there normally is, which is nice. Now that I've locked that kind of mid-back shoulder blade position in, trying to get more rotation through my upper arms, really active through my hands, the thumb pulls back, the fingers are active, no bending through the wrists. Breathing into the back of my ribs, relaxing my belly. Breathing in and out my nose, relaxing my face. Pulling those shoulders back and down every now and then. Just over 10 seconds left here. If you're struggling with space or ceiling height like me, you can do this as kneeling wall clock, which is what I kind of quickly demonstrated. But you can also do it as floor block on the floor as well. And that is time. Okay, good news, bad news, final exercise. We're gonna do air bench. So for air bench, I'm going to keep my socks on because I've got my mat and it's very grippy. If you're on wooden floor, you might want to take your socks off. You might possibly want to put trainers on, but I would rather you didn't put trainers on because the trainers might throw the angle of the posture. So I'd rather you go for a sticky surface if possible. So what we're doing is we're bringing the back body to the wall like so. Again, toes, ankles, knees and hips are in alignment. You want the ankles and the feet to be a little bit further away from the wall perhaps than you think they should be, because as you slide down, you don't want the knees to overshoot the ankles, because we will really want to push into the backs of our feet and the fronts of our feet, but we're basically really grounding down through the entire length of our feet. Toes are not clawing, and we're using that grounding down of the feet to push our legs backwards. In this exercise, we're not throwing the shoulders and the arms backwards. We're using the feet to really push the pelvis, the hips, the lumbar spine, and the bottom of the rib cage downwards. It doesn't matter if you're hunched. Off we go. And as this exercise is quite difficult, it makes it more challenging to maintain that calm breath. So we're breathing in and out of our nose, breathing into the lower rib cage, keeping our face relaxed, and provided that we don't have any knee pain and that we're not struggling too much, eventually we're aiming to come down to a 90-degree angle. We're making sure that the knees are not falling in or falling out. Really keeping that weight through the whole length of both of your feet. So it's not just in the backs of your feet, it's not just in the fronts of your feet. And we're using that connection with our feet to really push the legs backwards. My right leg is really wobbling today, which is unusual, but a nice sign. And this exercise is fabulous at, yes, waking up the legs and just powering up everything through the legs, but it's really good for balancing the pelvis and balancing rotation through the lumbar and the thoracic spine. So we're hopefully going to align your upper body nicely by doing this. Keep breathing. If you need to take a little break, you can kind of push up, take a break, come back down. We're going to do this for 2 minutes, so we've got about 45 seconds left in total. But if you're really going for this and you're getting way, way, way stronger, you can kind of aim to hold this for 3 minutes in total. My right leg is really wobbling, which is unusual for me in this exercise, but I'm going to read into this that my right side of my pelvis is moving into flexion better because the right side of my pelvis is stuck forwards anteriorly. It struggles to move. Everything that we've done so far is helping that pelvis tuck under. And as that leg's wobbling, I can feel how my shoulders want to pull backwards. I'm really wobbling here. 3, 2, and 1. And you can carry on for another minute if you want to. So that was our hands and wrist menu from the Pain Free by Pete Egoscue book. I hope you enjoyed.